Looking like everybody's getting comfortable. Okay, well then I'm just going to kick us off today. Welcome to this TLC spring event that we are doing. The TLC, I hope you all know, stands for the Teaching and Learning Center. We have a varied program set for you today over the next hour and a half or so, but we end with a boral, I promise you. This is a really important topic that we're covering, and I think it's also a really difficult topic that we're going to talk about today. And so we're going to do it from different angles. We have a student with a physical disability who's going to share his perspective on things. We have experts from the ECIO who are going to talk to us about their perspective and things we can know as teachers and as creators of education. We have a representative from the task force right now that the UvA has started about studying with a disability to hear what the UvA is doing and to also share our thoughts on this. And we have, of course, the organizers of our event as well who will tell us a little bit more about the event today and why they've shaped it. Now, before we get started with that, I'd like to introduce myself. I think most of you have seen me or know me in some shape or way. My name is Jessica Piotrowski. I'm the co-director of the Teaching and Learning Center here on our FMG. Sharon is our other co-director over here wandering with his camera. I'm also the director of the Graduate School for Communication here, so you've probably heard or seen me in one or more means. And I have to say, this is a topic that I think has inspired me more over the past few years as the director of the Graduate School for Communication, with teachers coming to me and saying, I don't talk about it in my classroom because I'm not sure how to do it. I was just with a teacher right before this event, and she said to me, there was a student in my classroom who had a wheelchair, and I was afraid to ask if I should do something better because I didn't know how to ask the question. So instead of asking, I said nothing at all. And I thought that resonated with me. It really resonated with me. And this sort of topic that we've heard teachers come to us at the Teaching and Learning Center, but have also come to me with my other director hat on, really led us to think, why doesn't the TLC just tackle this? Why don't we take a really difficult topic and give it voice? And so I want to call today our safe space. It's the space where we might say things to each other at these tables that we make mistakes on, that maybe are not the best way to phrase it or the best way we could do it. That's okay. Let's just let that be normal today. And let's try to learn and think of this as the beginning of what TLC is considering a series of events. So today is the first. We'll also be offering a follow-up to this event in June already, and then there's more coming next year to really start tackling this topic and giving it the voice that the Teaching and Learning Center feels it deserves. Now, I sound like I know what I'm talking about, I hope, but actually today's event really was completely developed, organized, and fully planned out by two people from the Teaching and Learning Center. I'd like to invite Chip and Ruth-Martine to come to the stage for a minute. Give you guys space over here. Everyone's got their own mic. We're very organized today. So Ruth-Martine is a trainer for the Teaching and Learning Center. So some of the teachers in the room, you might have already seen her. She's doing all of the work with our teachers right now, helping them get prepared for the classroom. Chip is also on the Teaching and Learning Center. He's been here since we were born, actually, in the TLC. And he represents the social sciences faculty, and he really helps us make sure that we are bringing in the voice of social science faculty in what we do. And what I did, Sharon and I were trying to think of the best pairing to create this event, and we asked these two to organize it for us. And so I thought maybe you could share with everybody, starting with you, Ruth-Martine, why did this event have to happen today? What do you think for this?
Yeah, well, when this event started, it resonated with ourselves as well. I was a teacher, and I had students in my class, and I felt like I really want to do it right, but I do not always know how. And it felt like I wanted to know tips myself as well. And here at the UvA, just discovering how all people who are working and wanting to make things better also come together and share their opinions. So our aim for today is that we really have more awareness, because usually we are not aware as teachers or other people in the UvA what's really going on. So awareness is our first goal for today, and the second is also practical tips, because okay, you can be aware, but then what's the next step? So we hope to leave you today with some things you can bring up next week in your class or in your work. So we hope that it will stick with you.
Excellent. And Chip, can you give us a little idea of who's in the room today?
Yes. I would first like to thank especially a couple of people from IDs. They are from the platform of representatives for people, for students with disabilities at the UvA. Thank you. And also Ihab is also present here. And we also had some contact with some alumni who couldn't be here today, unfortunately. When we were thinking about setting up this event, normally when we have a TLC event, it's for teachers. So this also, our main audience is teachers right now. But in this case, it is also important to have, well, the people that we teach involved, because those are, in the end, the people that we need to do something for. So therefore, we thought it was very important to have them involved, to have a lot of input by these people, and also have them actively participate in the event. So those people are here, and well, the rest will come.
We'll go along the way. Yeah, I think I would echo that point. When we were talking about this, we noticed that at the university, we're so big that a lot of our conversations are siloed. Students are in one space, bestow staff is in one space, teachers in one space, and we're actually not, but yet when we're in the classroom, we're just one group of people, right? We're just trying to figure this out. And so the idea today was actually to put us at round tables. You'll notice the tables are mixed. We're going to talk about things together as groups, and that was part of our goal today. So that was really something I think you guys tackled right away.
Thank you.
So, well, thank you guys for launching this today. So I would like to begin by actually hearing from our experience expert, as we refer to Ihab. So Ihab, maybe you want to join us today?
All right.
Hello, Ihab. Welcome to the
Hello.
stage.
Thanks for the fancy title as well. Apparently, I'm now an experience expert.
Experience expert.
Sounds fancy. Nice.
Indeed. Also a student with us right now, and as I learned today, is currently running for the CSR. So we will hear results by the end of this week. So, Ihab, I thought maybe we could start today by having you introduce yourself to the room.
I'm Ihab. I'm 25 years old. I've been studying at UvA since 2017. And I am currently finishing my degree in economics and business economics. I only have the thesis left. And I started a second bachelor in political science this year because I wanted to broaden my knowledge, to build a bit more of a varied portfolio, and also to really try and improve things for students with a disability at the UvA, but also countrywide if possible.
Love that. Can you tell us a little bit about the type of disability you have and how that affects your daily life here at the UvA?
Well, I have a visual disability, so I can see nothing with my left eye. It's completely blind. Also, it's a fake eye. And with my right eye, I can still see a little bit, colors, shapes, but not really, like, for example, faces, looks, facial expressions, all that. And how that affects my daily life? Well, I mean, it's like, it affects everything, from the small things to the big things, you know. Do you want me to jump right into the daily life?
Well, perhaps you could share what it means for you studying here, what it looks like in your daily life studying at the UvA.
Yeah, so normally I come to UvA, and then the first obstacle is the revolving doors. And most of the time what I do is I just woke up and I go in, like basically arms outstretched so it doesn't hit my stick or me. And then eventually I get through. Or I just ask people. And then I'm in, and what I usually do is I ask someone to guide me to the lecture room or tutorial room that I have to be in. And then I'm there. I sit down. For example, for lectures, most of the time I don't take notes because I am working with the text-to-speech software. And to have voiceover talking in one ear and the teacher in the other really doesn't work. It's like listening to two voices at the same time. So what I usually do is just I listen. Sometimes I ask if I can have somebody else's notes, but I just listen. If there's like something really visual going on, I raise my hand and I ask a question to ask for a little bit of extra elaboration. Or I ask the student next to me, if somebody's next to me, to not interrupt the lesson overly much. If it's really something serious and structural, I go to the teacher in the break and ask, hey, I noticed I couldn't really follow this part. Could you maybe explain it a little bit more? Or I do it after the lecture. Most of the time, I'm most productive in the first half of the lecture because it's like very intensive to listen to something without having like visual stimuli, which means like, you know, you can only be really, really concentrated for a short amount of time, like I would say 45 minutes. And after that, even if you don't want to, your thoughts start to wander. You know, like you just, I don't know, like your mind becomes blank and you just start looking in front of you glassy-eyed, and then it's like, so most of the time my first half of the lecture is the most productive, and in the second half it's off and on depending on if I got coffee in the break. And
For teachers too.
for teachers too. Yeah, but I mean you guys have to talk, so that's if you fall asleep in front of the mic, it's a completely different problem. But yeah, that's basically how it goes. And in tutorials, it's a little bit more of a relaxed setting because the two groups are smaller. So if there's like an issue, you can easily just ask, and it can be solved more easily most of the time. The only big challenges for me is when we get like Kahoot, for example, because it's like it goes too fast. I have no time to read it with my voiceover. By the time I'm reading it, it's already over. And paper things, but thankfully those have been decreasing more and more as of late anyway. And other than that, in between lectures and tutorials, I always ask people to guide me around, you know, from classroom to classroom, or from building to building, to the cafeteria, to the other lecture room, also to study rooms. And if I need to take a study break, for example, I also just ask people. And my go-to answer is ask people. Ask anything, yes.
Well, with that point in mind, I was thinking a little bit. We have a room full of teachers, many teachers in the room, for example, and I was thinking about the teacher I spoke with today, and she said, well, what's most helpful for me as a teacher? What should I be doing with the students in my classroom? So I wonder for you, what's most helpful for you? What would make a difference for you in your study experience from a teacher?
For me, for example, the example that she just gave, I would have really appreciated it if she just asked me. I'm not in her course, but I mean, for me, the most important thing is that people communicate with me, so I can explain to them, because I'm all too happy to explain. I'm all too happy to, you know, to help wherever I can, wherever it's possible. I'm not here to, you know, to be like, listen, this is not my problem. You know, I'm not getting paid to help. No, because this is my education, and not only my education, but also future students' education, and any way to improve that, regardless of how that's a good thing. So, for me, at least in my viewpoint, it's never wrong to ask a question. So for me, it's best if you're unsure about something, if you want to ask about something, just do it. I mean, be polite about it, and try to be constructive in your question, but just ask, because even if it's not, you know, the most politely communication science-y way to do it, it doesn't matter. It's all about the intention. For me, at least, the intention is what counts. And when there's an intention to understand and to learn, both from the student and the teacher, that's when you can actually explain things. That's when you can get things rolling. If both sides are just guarded and, you know, harp on every word regardless of looking on the intention, then there's no communication happening, and then both for the student, the education becomes problematic, and for the teacher, the education becomes stressful, and nobody wants that.
So I'm smiling as you say this, because what I'm hearing you saying is the take-home message, and I wonder what you might add to this, is to just talk.
Yes.
Is that what you would say?
Communicate, communicate, communicate.
See, there's a point right there for my degree program, guys. Communicate. So communicating is what you see is most important, for the teachers to feel comfortable talking with their students and really have this open dialogue.
Yes, and the other way around. You know, like that the students feel comfortable talking to the teachers too. Yeah. And for that, it's also really important that people are open to, for example, receiving feedback. Yeah. So, you know, for example, what I talked about earlier in the break of the lecture, that when I go up to a teacher and say, hey, could you explain this a little bit more, because I couldn't follow it, it was a bit too visual for me, that they don't see it as a personal attack, you know? Like, it's never personal. It's about understanding, it's about learning. You know, we're here to follow a degree, and nothing is personal, and it's really not a big deal to not be familiar with how to educate people with disability. I mean, we're a small group, and it's logical that you haven't encountered a student like us before, and it's really nothing wrong with that. It's, you know, so the most important part is to be open. And for example, when something like that happens, it's like, oh, nice that you're bringing it up. Thank you for bringing it up. I had never thought about it before. Do you have any suggestions on how we can do this better? Or do you have any feedback? And then they can take it into account, or they can think up something different. But the most important part is to be open to feedback. and not closed off. You know, not see it as a personal thing, because it's never personal. It's always about students just wanting to be educated. That's why we're here. That's why we're paying tuition.
I can't say anything more. That seems like it wraps up perfectly, so that was really lovely. I know we have about we're gonna have time for questions later, but I wanna do a check-in now from the audience to see if anybody wants to ask a question now. If you do, just point your hand up and Sharon will come to you. There's a lot of audience members currently smiling. I think you hit a lot of people with what you said just now. So, well, I wanna thank you so much for coming to the stage right now. Can I get a round of applause for Ihab, please? I think what's most important is that we do more of this, right? Actually hear from people themselves and create that space. So I really want to thank Ihab so much for your time right now. Now, I think it's fair enough to say that the team, as Chip and Ruth-Martine were putting this together today, we felt we were not the experts, right? And I don't think by any means we were trying to pretend we were. We just felt it was important. And so what we decided to do is we figured out, well, who are the experts? Where are the experts? What can they do to help us today? And actually, we were looking a lot at what the UvA had been doing. And for some of you, you might know that the UvA has sort of signed a letter of intent on inclusive education. And when we looked at the letter, we wanted to understand, well, who were the partners in creating this? Who helped shape this? And one group that was really important in this was I'm reading the card so I don't forget the perfect name here, the National Expertise Center for Inclusive Education, the ECIO. And we looked at what they were doing, and we saw that they were actually willing, which was pretty great, to come out and actually talk to people about what we can be doing so they can help us raise awareness about what this means. I find the phrase inclusive education is very big. What does this mean in practice? And so we invited two people with us today. So Ellen and Elke are here with us today. And for the majority of the time here, for about the next hour, it's going to be very interactive. So this will be the most sort of dialogue you hear from me. And they're going to walk you through what this means. What are we talking about? And you're going to hear the Universal Design for Learning. Did I get that right? Universal Design for Learning game. And some practical tips that you can start using in any shape of education that you're doing just to begin thinking about this topic and what that means. So Ellen and Elke, can I have you come to the stage, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for this lovely introduction, Jessica. And thank you. I'm Elke, and this is Ellen. Yes. We're L and L. We get mixed up sometimes. Sorry for that, but 10 points if you remind our names after. So I will start the introduction first, and Ellen will introduce herself also. We are working at ECIO, as Jessica mentioned. And we do many things. Just like you said, Jessica, what is inclusive education? Well, that's already a topic that we can talk for hours. But we won't do that today. We will have a short introduction on inclusive education. I will do that. And then Ellen will guide you through the interactive part. For me, I work at ECIO. We are in Den Bosch, wonderful city. Well, never mind. we have bossenbollen, as you might know, or maybe you don't. Go to Den Bosch and have a bossenbol. It's wonderful. For me, and also for Ellen, actually, we both work on the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. We will talk about that for a very short part also today. And, maybe you can introduce yourself also.
Yes. Oh, it's working, right? Yeah. Okay. Yes, so I am Ellen, and I work for ECIO now for 2 years. And, I created the game that we're going to play shortly. So, then we'll talk more, I guess.
Yeah, all right. Yes, thank you very much. This one is forward. Okay. So this is a program, short introduction on inclusive education. Why is it important? For whom is it important? Ellen will do the UDL game. We'll introduce to you 8 elements to work on inclusive education. well, during our talk, we'll catch up some practical tips and have a wrap up. So, ECIO, well, we inform, we advise, we support universities and also universities of applied sciences and also TVETs on issues around inclusive education and student well-being. And why is that important? Well, we saw Ihab just talking about it, why that is important. Because students want to learn. That's why they're there, right? They're here in between these walls. And on the sheet that I'm showing now is a lecture room with many students, and we have some numbers on the sheet. 45% of the student population in the Netherlands is having an impeding circumstance, which can be many, many things. And there's an example here, for example, informal care. In Dutch it's mantelzorg, which is, it's not only having a disability or having a physical disability. So 45% of the students say themselves they have some kind of, well, something they carry with them which can hinder them in their studies. And 34% of all the students have a disability. And in Dutch we say functiebeperking, or well, there are many other names to do that. But if you think 45% and 34%, and if you picture yourself a lecture room, that's quite a big number. As you said, Ihab, sorry, for teachers it might be a small group. I'm not always agreeing with that, because it's actually quite a big group that we're talking about. And 10% of all students, which is a third of students with a disability, are actually obstructed in their education because of their disability. Picture this lecture room again. 10% is still quite a big group of people. And also what we see from research is that these students, every day they need to have, they have more effort to be able to study. These students, in the numbers actually, we see that they have more study delay. And so it's quite important for us, well, that's why I'm very happy that you are all here, to be aware of this and to understand, well, okay, these students might need a little extra help. In the sheets is also a link to the research that's where these numbers come from. So students with disabilities, on the sheet I'm showing now the four, how will I say, 4 groups of disabilities. Well, of course, there are many different kinds of whatever you can take with you. But these are a little bit the main groups. For example, visual impairment, auditory impairment, cognitive impairment, and physical disability. Especially when you think of making your education more accessible. And you might think of, okay, so somebody who has visual impairment, which can be blind or color blindness, or somebody who has an auditory impairment can be deaf or having tinnitus. Just think about, well, these, when we're talking about disability, it can be organized in these 4 groups. So we'll zoom out now to inclusive education. And inclusive education is about everybody, involve everybody. Everybody can be autonomous in following their studies. And at this point I'm showing on the sheets 3 pictures. And the picture on the left, there are 3 persons standing on boxes, and they are trying to watch a football game, but there's a fence in front of these students, and one of the one of them can easily look over the fence, one of them cannot, is a little bit shorter, and the third is the shortest person. And they're all standing on a box that is equally high. Equally high. So two of them can watch over the fence, and the third one, the shortest person, cannot. And on this picture, it says, treat everyone equally. You might think, well, that's fair, right? We need to treat everybody equally. If we do that in this case, well, the third person, the smallest person, is still not helped. This person cannot watch over the fence and cannot enjoy the football game. The middle picture says, treat everyone in such a way that the possibilities are equal. In this case, the three persons are being helped. The first one can watch over the fence, him or herself. The second person is standing on one box, and the third person is standing on two boxes. Everybody can enjoy the game, everybody is helped. But it's still kind of a reactive way of helping. You know, the second and the third person, the two smallest person, had to ask for this box. So they had to ask, and then a reaction comes, and the third person is helped. The last picture on the right, there are no boxes, but the fence is, well, it's not gone, there is a fence, but you can see through the fence. So nobody has to ask anything, and for everybody, the game is universal, accessible for everybody, in this case, to watch the game who wants to be there. So this picture says that it would be good to have a proactive attitude, to think in front. Okay, so if we change our environment for, which is a small change in this case, if we change our environment, everybody can join. On the next sheet, I show a pyramid, and it's the inclusive education pyramid. We use this from our partner from Ireland. And this pyramid says that if you make the basics, which the basics of a pyramid is the biggest part. So for the most students, you make your education as inclusive for as many people as possible. And a pyramid has always a top, a small top. There will always be a group of students who will need a special care or special help and need this reactive help, let's say it. And what we see is that, that sometimes there is focus on the top, on this reactive way. So a student comes in, that person wants to study, and well, needs help. So it comes in, and the educational institution says, okay, tell us what you need, and we will fix it. It's a reactive way, and it's an important way to keep that and to do that right. At the same time, it is very good to focus also on the basics of the pyramid. Think proactively, think in front. Okay, what can we do to change our educational system, my lectures, our educational materials, whatever? What can we do proactively in front so that so that everybody can join and we don't have to think? Well, the persons who come studying won't have to ask for help every time. So both attitudes are very important. The picture I'm showing now is a medical model versus the social model. It's a little bit of background information, but the social model says that people are disabled by barriers, so by their surroundings. It's not a person that is, well, the problem. It's always a weird word to use. And the medical model says people are disabled by medical conditions. So also in this case, think like the social model. Look at your environment, look at your educational system, look at your lecture, look at your materials that you're giving your students, and think in front. Okay, so what kind of barriers can my students experience? for now. The Declaration of Intent for the UN Convention on the Rights of People with a Disability. That is quite a long name, but in 2016, the Dutch government signed this UN convention, which was quite late, actually, looking at Europe and the rest of the world, but they did. And we, as ECIO, we made also a declaration of intent for higher educational institutions to sign, so that they can speak out loud that they want to work on more inclusive education. So now 26 institutions already signed. I see Karen there. I'm not sure if you're on the picture also here. Yeah, there you are. The UvA was actually one of the first that signed this declaration of intent. So that's wonderful. Okay, so that was enough talking for my part. Now it's time for you to get working, and Ellen will guide you through the UDL game.
Yes. Well, I hope you are all very motivated now. I think, well, you came here probably motivated to do something with inclusive education. Also, after hearing about what's going on in the Netherlands. But we thought it's also very good to exchange ideas. You're sitting here with lots of people, and maybe people you do not talk to every day. So we created this game, and we will do like a limited version or like a shorter version of it, because we do not have that much time. But this game is called the UDL game. And UDL stands for Universal Design for Learning. And what this really means, we will tell after the game, because first you will kind of get familiar with it yourself. And this game, so it says, step into the shoes of a student with disability. Well, what the game is, it's today we will just stay at the tables, but as you might see, there are some papers on tables, and there's different materials. To start with, an insights form. You can use that during the entire event if you have ideas you want to remember. But there's also a description of a student persona. So there are 3 different personas. They are divided over the tables. And they all have their own story. They study and they have a certain disability. At some of the tables, there's also some material for you to. Of course, you cannot experience what it is to have a disability with just putting on some glasses. But if you want to. You can also take the material to maybe kind of for a moment have some sort of ideas on how it is to have, for example, visual impairment or auditive impairment. So here on the slide you can see the game is like this. So imagine those students. So the student you have at your table starts their studying, and the chair. This is me right now. Is describing a scenario. The scenario is actually also on the table, and as a group you will discuss. Hey, what does this mean for this specific student we are now talking about? Is this actually helpful for the student for their study progress, or hindering? And what is this effect actually? And you can also think about what does this tell me as a professional what I can maybe do when I am also in those kind of scenarios or creating those kind of scenarios. And then we will also have some time to, if you want as a group, share with the entire group what you've discussed. So we will have a few minutes to discuss every scenario. Is this clear, or is there? Yeah, all right. So this I explained already. Let's play. Well, the first scenario, it's called tables and figures in exams are provided with descriptive text. So you can now just, with the persons at your tables, discuss this scenario and discuss, is this helpful or hindering for the student persona that is described at your table. And if you need anything more, please let us know. Okay, I think we have to close the discussion for now. Yes, yes. I was wondering, is there a group who likes to share? I think we can. I'm not good at throwing myself, but if someone maybe wants to share, what did you discuss? What was important to ask yourself when thinking about this?
I'm not sure. So we took some time to read the persona. I think next time we need to be a bit quicker.
Yeah. Oh no.
But we thought in this case that it's not hindering because he has a physical disability, and this is about visual components. Visual, so he can read and he can see the visuals as well. And then we also thought this is actually what research shows works best when you have a combination of text and visual.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't change anything here for Jack.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe we should say who we have. We have Jack, who is in a wheelchair. Yeah.
He has a muscle disease.
Yes.
What is it? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Normally, I always take a step in between of reading the persona, so I kind of also forgot about. Of course, you need time for that. I'm sorry. Yeah. Please. Please.
I will hold the mic for, yes.
Okay, so it's partially correct. I mean, with screen reader, it's possible to read descriptive text, but the question here is more, how descriptive is it? Mm-hmm. So it says descriptive text, but like, how do you make descriptive text for a table, for example? It's more that the table itself needs to be... For figures, you really need to have descriptive text, and it needs to be like really clear. For tables, it's more a question of, is the table itself accessible? How does it work? What format is it using? Et cetera, et cetera. But that's more a technical speech. But in general, it isn't unhelpful. It's just a question of to which degree it's lacking a lot of detail. So I cannot really answer it like comprehensively at this point. But what I can say is that, of course, auditory would be the best. I mean, if you could just have an oral exam, that would probably, if it was a really visual subject, for example, econometrics, I basically did an oral exam because it was so visual that it was almost impossible to do it within Word. But it really depends on the degree of severity. And then you need to think about like a solution that fits the problem. And that's it.
Yes. Thank you for this addition. It's very important. Let's move on to the next scenario. It's actually about an exam as well, or an assessment, which can not always have to be an exam. So you get the choice as a student to make an assessment, and this can be in the form of a report, a written report, a video, or a poster. So you can discuss now, is this helpful or hindering for your student? And also, are you maybe applying this in your work, or what are maybe practical issues that come along? Take your time to talk about it. Okay, I think we have to finish the discussions for now in the groups. See, some groups are still very much in discussion. Does someone wants to share something about this discussion you had at the table? Or did you say like what happens at the table stays at the table?
Same table again.
We'll get started, I think. So we were thinking that for our persona is Jack. We mentioned before he's in a wheelchair. We felt that these options, in general, we appreciated them, but there was interesting questions about what degree does the student have to come to campus? So if it's a poster presentation, do they need to be in a room where they have to be, for example, standing and presenting at some space? For example, this is not something the student could do. What is the expectation of the video? What is the infrastructure that's needed for the student to have the ability to engage in these activities and have a true choice? And then we also admittedly, I think our conversation then went a little bit broader and talking about the different support mechanisms. And we were talking about how would other students in a classroom see it if you offered different variations to some students, but not all? How would that work? And Ihab made the point, he said, and I'm paraphrasing for you, that in certain cases when a disability is very visual, nobody's really complaining about that. It makes sense. Oh yeah, of course. But when a disability is less visual or is not visual, and we start talking about mental disabilities, for example, suddenly there can be, people struggle to find that that's fair and discuss this because mental disabilities are really invisible. And these invisible disabilities are a whole other space for us to think about tackling as well. So would you add any more? Anyone else from the table? Yeah.
Yeah, we also had a discussion about this from the teacher perspective, because from a universal design perspective, you could say, well, it's fair that we provide options, but giving a class of 600 to 700 students, giving everyone options, that is not really feasible. So in the pyramid that you showed, this is something where for us what we discussed would be something that would be on the top, where you provide options to the people that, that need it, but not in a universal design for everyone. So this is what we discussed.
Okay, and did some groups actually look at this from the perspective that this is offered to every student? This group? Yeah? You want to share something about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually thought about it in a universal perspective. And first we were like, yay, more choice is better to accommodate more students. But then we also talked about that it could be difficult for a teacher to grade everything similar and to look at it in the same way. Also to make sure that the end terms are all in this assessment forms. And maybe it works better for some types of courses and doesn't fit so well with other types. And also, our student is a visually impaired student, and then we would think that other options might have been better than those options, because a video and a poster are still quite visual.
What options did you think about?
Yeah, maybe a mondeling, I don't know the English word. Oral exam, yeah. Or a podcast, yeah. Or a video with speech, like other forms. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, so we went from very enthusiastic to, we have to think about it a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, well, I will say keep the discussion for the bottle that will be there. And now we will move on to the next part of the program. I will ask Elke to come here again. You can still use the insights forum like during the rest of the program if you want to write something down.
Okay. Yeah, so this was a very, very short introduction on this UDL game. Well, what would you name it? Because and there's been very, very short discussions with each other, of course, because We have a short limit of time. So we want to get, and Ellen will introduce a little bit more on UDL after this, but we introduce you the 8 elements on inclusive education and some practical tips. Because our researchers, how do you say it? They did a research last year, and they made it's in Dutch it's called de staat van inclusief onderwijs, which is the status of inclusive education in the Netherlands. And they found out, well, if we work with each other on 8 elements in the whole educational system, then we are working towards more inclusive education. So the first element is the educational system, so the law and the regulation and etc. The second one is learning environment and culture, social safety, sense of belonging, physical and digital accessibility. The third element is educational program and assessment. Well, we had some examples just in our discussion before. So flexible learning pathways, accessible assessment, representation in curriculum. And the fourth element is provision of support and guidance, adequate support and facilities. We have some student deans sitting here, so it's an important part of inclusive education also. And good information and communication about provision of support. I go very quickly through these elements, I'm sorry for that, but you can read it all in the link that we will send it to you. The fifth element is support of professionals, so what we're doing today. Teaching for staff and teachers' well-being is also a very important part. When you think of student well-being, some students may come to you as a teacher with various different kind of issues, problems, mental health issues. Sometimes we hear even students who come to teachers with thinking of suicide, for example. That can be very hard and a big burden for you as a teacher. And so we always say, also take teachers' well-being into account, which is, if you are not feeling well, how can you help your students? Sixth element is transitions to and from education. So a transition from secondary school to university, transition to labor market, and internships. The seventh element is national and regional cooperation, national exchange of knowledge. And especially within the TVET and other regional corporations that, and also with the local care institutions. And the eighth element is monitoring and use of data. So research and monitoring on inclusion. You can do a lot of this within your own institution already. And students as partner in evaluation and developing new interventions. Well, we are very happy that there are students here today to join. And I know, Jessica, you introduced us as the experts. Well, I always say, well, the experts are actually the students sitting here on the tables. So we pick out a few elements. So element number 2 was the learning environment and culture, social safety, respect for diversity, sense of belonging, and physical and digital accessibility. So talking about digital accessibility, for example, we see on the sheets now that, and it says we all experience accessibility from time to time. For example, situational, if you're sitting in the train or the bus and you're trying to listen to a lecture or, I don't know, some video, wouldn't it be helpful to have subtitles underneath it? So it's helpful for everybody. Another temporary accessibility problem can be that you cannot use your hand to work with your mouse on the computer. And think of people with a disability that can never do that. Just a little awareness on that one. So digital accessibility in higher education concerns, well, I usually say in 3 parts. Which the first one concerns systems, so ICT, for example, Blackboard, I don't know what kind of system you use. Canvas, well, Wouldn't it be helpful for so that everybody can actually use this system? And when we say everybody, we mean everybody. So purchasing these systems, you have to think in front. Okay, when we purchase this in our program of programma van eisen, well, the things that you want to have in these systems when you're buying them. Think about, okay, when we go to this to the ICTs, yeah, sorry, oh, the catch box.
This one is also not just the applications, but also what you do with it as a teacher.
Yes.
Because I've seen, especially in Canvas, using the modules, where people just state in the modules, lecture 1, lecture 2, lecture 3, lecture 4. So you use a screen reader, and you still don't know what the lecture is about. So you also, for teachers specifically, try to put the information at the places that it's needed, because just having Canvas be accessible is not enough. We also have to put in the effort to make it clear what information can be found at specific parts.
Exactly. Thank you very much. That's actually the middle part of the sheet. So at first, your system should be accessible at first, and then it's about the education. The content, the materials you put in these systems, and the content and materials you hand out to your students, but also your teaching. I'm trying to explain what's on the sheets today. So I speak out loud what we are seeing, and well, that. And also, teaching in these days, there's also online teaching. So how do you do that, and how do you take students into account with a disability? And the third part on the sheet is about communication. So the website, your intranet, your content, schedules that you send out, or flyers, or whatever. So the marketing and communication part is also very important in digital accessibility. So it's important to, for example, some tips for teachers. Build your Word documents accessible. There are some rules or some tips or some very small things you can do as a teacher to make your Word document accessible. We have this quick wins for teachers. The link is also in this presentation that you can read how you can do that. And for example, you use how do you say it? A good, I have the Dutch word in my head, koppenstructuur. Sorry? The heading levels. Thank you very much. Yeah, so that's very easy. If you use your heading levels, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3 in your document, then somebody can, with a screen reader, for example, can very easily jump from from one section to the other section. So if you have a document of 200 pages and you're searching for this certain part of information, it would be nice to start, to choose the place that you want to be. And that's very easily if you, as a content creator, you use these headings. I'm skipping this part because we're running out of time. Yes, for example, tips for teachers is record lectures, send PowerPoints in advance, so somebody can read it in front and think about it already. Structure your lesson. That's also helpful for everybody, of course, but good structures in your teaching materials and in your lessons, also in your website, well, in any communication level, structure your lessons, and that helps. Repeat questions from students before answering them. So if a student here in front of the lecture room asks me a question and the other ones in the back cannot hear it, it's always nice to have somebody to repeat the question. Very small tips. You can do them today and tomorrow and start already. So as a teacher, you can have your basic attitude, be open to students with disabilities. Ihab already told us that. Study materials, make them as accessible as possible from scratch. Once you've done that, then you can use it always, and it's quite easy to do it. Offer alternatives where possible. We saw that already in the assessment that we did today. But also manage expectations. You cannot always do everything for everybody. So manage these expectations, be clear about it, and communicate, like Ihab said. Know who you can refer students to. So know the pathways to the students' deans or students' counselors, sorry. And report issues to a central reporting point, for example. Quickly about UDL.
Yes, so to give you a little bit, some more tips actually, and this is just a small introduction. So the scenarios we just talked about, those are actually based on what Universal Design for Learning is saying, what is helpful for inclusive education and what is not. So here, for when you think about the third element, about your educational program and assessment, UDL can be helpful in this. So what is UDL? UDL is actually, was founded in the US in the 1980s, and it's based on, when we think back about this fence, which has like the third one on the right was just another type of fence, which in which it doesn't matter how tall you are. This universal design is actually now moved to education and became universal design for learning. And what you do with UDL, you can see it as a framework which led to certain principles and guidelines, which helps to make your education more inclusive. And the big thing about it is have the diversity of your students in mind. So here, this is actually part of a poster which you will receive actually after this. So, but first I will explain a little bit about it. Yeah, it's over there. And Universal Design for Learning is actually made out of 3 principles, which is actually came from results of research, which shows how the brain works, how we learn as people, and why we learn, why we stay engaged as learners, as people. That actually differs from people. Some are interested in certain type of topics, of course, and it's for example helpful if you can also see yourself in the examples that are given in your classes. The middle one is about what you learn. So this is about the information you give, representation. So people differ in the ways they perceive and comprehend information. And here you can also, for example, think about people with a visual impairment. They need maybe not only textual information, but also in another way, in an auditive way, for example. And how is how you can actually show what you have learned, and this can also differ between people. So some tips that you can use from UDL. Well, use a variety of sources and case studies. So maybe also think about, are persons with a disability part of the case studies that I use? This helps for students maybe with a disability to feel engaged, feel that they that this study material also is part of their world. Provide authentic and personal assignments. It doesn't mean that you have to make a new assignment for every student, but also it's about giving maybe options that we discussed about before, that or that students can think of one particular case study they can dive into. When we think about the second principle about representation, the information you can receive, it's very important to offer ways of customizing information, so that the display of information, so that you can actually zoom in to really see the information. And also think about important concepts. Do not only offer them in text, but also in images. And then when it comes to the how, so people can express what they've learned. Yeah, that's also what we discussed before. Maybe some choices can be helpful because some persons are really good with showing it in images and other more in textual way. And very important, I think it's also about having PowerPoint slides before classes, but also example exams, which we do not always want to share, but it's very important for students to really get well prepared and know what they can expect. So that's actually what we wanted to share today. It's maybe I hope you can all take something out of this and maybe think about, well, what can I do tomorrow? Just a small tip I can do tomorrow differently. And I think very important, still stay in dialogue with your students. And there's still some more information at the slides. So the slides are online, and these were already online. And you can look at them back when you have more time. So thank you. And I hope you've learned something today.
Thank you very much. So thank you. A round of applause, please. So all of the slides from today you'll get available. You'll get that. It's also good to know that we're passing around the poster right now that was referred to. Now, I do want to do a few more things before we close up. I know we're keeping you from a borough, but there's a few more things that I wanted to do. In particular, I was really excited because Michel Telkamp is here today. And Michel, in addition to being the head of our, I guess in English it's head of operational management. Is that the right way? Sort of like that. So in addition to that, you're actually currently sitting on our working group studying with a disability. Is that correct? Yeah. I was hoping maybe we could talk a little bit with you today. So I thought it would be really nice, since we have someone in-house here in the FMG, that maybe we could hear from you. So thank you for hanging with us today. And I was hoping maybe you could explain, because I'm not sure if everybody here knows that this, is it a task force or a working group? What is the...
Well, it's something
somewhere in between.
In between, yeah.
Yeah, it's growing. And I'm not sure if everybody yet knows what this plan is or what the whole idea of this is. So maybe you could share.
Yeah, so first I think it's good to make a distinction. We have a platform on disability, and we have a working group or task force on disability. And I'm focusing on the last one.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean the first one isn't important. It's really important. And in the platform, we focus on getting the information we have within the university to the students with disabilities, but also to the staff members who fill in a role in helping our students. So it's a very important group. But now our central board has put in place a project group to advise them on 5 related topics, and that's their task, and they're currently discussing it and writing a report which should be available somewhere in the summer. And the central board has asked us to give an advice on 5 topics, and I've wrote them down so to be correctly. And maybe I can just share them with you. So the first one is they ask us to give an advice or to clarify or streamline the procedure for granting appropriate facilities to students with disabilities, and with particular attention to the individual students. So we have general facilities and for students, but some students also need personal attention and personal facilities. And that's not going right all the time. So we can learn and we can improve. The second one is an advice on identifying one or more broadly deployable specific digital workforce forms. So we've added a lot of additional tools to our portfolio during the COVID pandemic. And maybe we should keep some in place because they work and they have a purpose. But it's important to make a distinction for the people who need it and the people who would like to have it. So that's part of the discussion, and they asked us to give an advice on that. The third one is to create a so-called PDCA cycles, Plan, Do, Check, Act. So it's not just implementing new policies, but also evaluate and improve it in a continuous process. And that's important, I think, because as a UVA, we are very good at creating new policy, and then we stop. And we really need to evaluate and evolve in that policy. So the fourth one is an advice on the added value and possible setup of a contact point on a central location. So should we centralize all our expertise and should we make a central contact point or not? And the last one is an advice on the added value and possible setup for a centrally organized expertise center. The UVA is organized by different faculties, and we have a lot of experiments in different faculties, but it is not naturally to bring that together and to learn from each other. So they ask us an advice on should we create some sort of expertise centrum within the university that can help share the information we have, not only to students with a disability, but also to our staff members who have a role in supporting the students. So those are the 5 questions. It's a bit weird that they ask these questions now, but they're still really important issues. And I always say when I talk about this subject, we have managed to organize a lot of things related to this topic, but we're not there yet. And that's the task for the next few years. We can still improve on a lot of topics, and you can. This assignment is part of that learning process which we go through as a university.
Yeah, I appreciate hearing this, and I know you in many different capacities, of course, with my job. And what I also know about you is you're very passionate about this topic. I find that when you and I talk money and things like that, that's one space. But when we bring this up, this lights you up. You're fiercely passionate about it. And so I wonder, what are you hoping for in all of this? So I know we're working on coming up with structures, but what are you hoping for?
Yeah, now it's getting personal, but
yes.
I think every student has a right to a normal period at the university. And that's important. And I still see that some students are coping with problems that we can easily solve. So that's my personal ambition, to create, to get rid of those barriers and try to create a condition where everybody at the UVA can study like everybody else.
I think that sounds great. Well, thank you for today. I appreciate you showing up today and actually joining us today, and also for your efforts in this. So we very much appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and I would like to give a compliment to the TLC for organizing this event, because it's important to have these kinds of meetings where we discuss and have some presentations to create more and more awareness. And for me, and I think for the UVA as well, this is important to keep learning and to keep improving it. It's not just listening and being here, it's also picking up the things we hear and trying to create a better policy for everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. So I feel as though Michel didn't know how he really naturally led into the next point for me, part of our closing points. Today's goal was really to just raise awareness and find the individuals in the FMG who say, yeah, I want to talk about this. And the sheets you're getting and the slides you have get you thinking about some interesting ideas. But we know that this is just the beginning, and we're actually already planning an event in June. And so, Larissa, could I ask you to come to the stage briefly and share a little bit?
Yes, well, good afternoon, everyone. I have 3 minutes left, so I will do it quickly and improvise a bit. My name is Larissa Klaassen. My dog is saying also hello. She's laying on the ground right there. It's my guide dog and my partner in crime. And her name is Diamond, also Flappy in the Netherlands. I work as an accessibility expert for now at least 11 years at the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences, well, the HVA. And I also did the same work for the UvA when Student Services and Studentenzaak worked together. Sadly, not anymore. So, but now there was Ruth-Martine, who told me about this event. And in my job as accessibility expert for the HVA, but also as a freelancer, together with my work, I think it's work because it's full-time, as a professional sporter. I'm a Paralympic athlete for the Netherlands. I'm a 2 times world champion and won silver in Rio and gold in Tokyo in track cycling events. So I want to bring that mindset to the accessibility work and to enthuse others and motivate them to, in this case, make the education more inclusive and accessible for, you said, everyone. So we are now planning a follow-up event, which is a bit more practical. Now we had the headlines of inclusive education and a bit of the accessibility. So now we want to dive a bit deeper in the practical side of it. So how do you work on the right heading levels? Can you check the contrast yourself? How can you provide accessible PowerPoint slides? And also when they are in PDF, because PDF it's a bit more difficult than a normal PowerPoint slide. So yeah, I want to give a demonstration of it, give some practical tips. And we decided, I think 2 minutes ago, it's on the 19th of June in the afternoon from 3 till 5. And I think you will send them an email, Ruth. Yeah, I hope that you receive that email and sign up all and see you all together on the 19th of June. So I hope so.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Larissa. As we're closing the event, I was trying to think about what my smart and genius closing words might be. I'm not sure I have any, but I was writing down a lot of notes. And I found that actually very powerful. From actually seeing our speaker saying, let me describe the slides. I thought, oh, I haven't done that before in my classroom. That was just a demonstration of something I learned. To thinking about the combination of reactive and proactive approaches. I think I've always thought it was either or, and I didn't really think about it being both. To the comment of that people are disabled by barriers, not by medical conditions. I found that a very powerful, that one hit home for me. And I was thinking about how do we reduce this as teachers? How do we reduce these barriers? And at the same time, I was thinking about my colleagues who are saying, I am under so much pressure. I don't know if I have the time. Sharon's point when he said, but how would I make 3 different versions of an exam when I have, or different assessment when I have 600 students? And I thought, wow, this is part of the dialogue we need to get into, right? How do we think about these differences where we're having everybody's voices and continue thinking about how to do that? And so I hope in the workshop we have coming up that we get some tips on the easy things that we can do right away, and then we can keep thinking about this. It also made me think I want to go back to my class that I teach and look at the assessments I have and the way I'm teaching and what things I can do using universal design as a starting point, but also just feeling what Ihab said was, I think, very important to me when he said, just ask me. Just talk to me. I thought, I don't think I've done that myself, and I've been teaching for long enough that I'll age myself up here. And I thought, wow, okay, I can do that better too. And creating that culture and that space where it's okay, and we say to each other, it's perfectly okay to ask these questions, I find something that's a message we can pass to all of our colleagues in teaching as well. This notion of being open to learning so that, as we said, when we say everybody, we mean everybody. I thought it was really interesting to see. I always preach about going from equality to equity, but I never thought about the fence. Right, that last part of that image about what else I can be doing. So that really is a lasting part for me. And I think I'm going to keep thinking on this. And I hope that that's for all of you, that you didn't necessarily get, 100 things today, but you got a few that gets you charged and think about, there's more to come. So I encourage you to come to our June event. It's good to know that we will follow up with you with an we'll ask you to fill out an evaluation today. Let us know what else you want to know. This is going to be the beginning of a series that will be continuing all throughout next year. More difficult, fun topics to come. You can email the TLC if you have questions as a teacher. If you just want to know and you want more personalized things, if you want some one-to-one coaching, we're also happy to put you in contact with this. ECIO is here today doing just a highlight of what they would do, but they would do much lengthier sessions. And if you're interested in bringing that to your department, we can facilitate that as well. So our job today is just to say, hey, we're a resource, let's figure it out, and then we can help connect you and connect the dots a bit more. For your students, don't forget the study advisors are a crucial space here. Please make sure to keep those dialogues open. And just know that I really appreciate the fact that you show up says you're committed, and I think that just says so much about the FMG. As we close, I'd really like to thank our speakers. You guys can stay in your seats for now. I can imagine you want to go have your borrel, but I want to thank Ihab, I want to thank Ellen, I want to thank Elke, I want to thank Michel, and our ideas group over here. Thank you also for sharing. We have some Puccini chocolates for you because, well, I mean, Puccini is the best chocolate. For everybody, I ask you to please enjoy the boral that we have, and please stay around, talk, ask any questions to the TLC folks. And thank you all for a beautiful evening. Enjoy the snacks. They're all vegan, by the way.